Hi, everyone. This is Robert Asencio. And today I want to ask you a question. Are your decisions being influenced by misinformation? This is a great topic. We know it's a factor in our lives. And today, to discuss this issue and probe into what's really going on with misinformation, its impact on political outcomes, but more importantly, on your day to day lives, the hardships that we're experiencing. Today, we have an incredible public servant, our former Congresswoman, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. Welcome.
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. And I know you've been speaking out recently, doing the circuit on political misinformation and providing information to people about what's going on, who's behind it, the impacts. So if we can get into it, I know that, let's see, on February 7th, I believe it was February 7th at Miami-Dade College, there was a congressional hearing, if you will. Here, you attended. Raul Martinez, former mayor of City of Hialeah, attended. Eduardo Gamarra, professor at FIU. The chair of Rising, Florida Rising, was there. Can we talk about that? What you guys discovered or what you guys discussed about misinformation, predominantly in South Florida?
Yeah, Robert, let me give you just a little background. At the beginning of 2020, as we were being hit by this devastating pandemic, and most of us who were in Congress at the time came back home and we were doing a lot of district work, I started realizing that something was going on. And it was something that I was feeling on the ground when I was going out to visit with different constituents. And I started hearing things that just didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't until my mom, I remember this so clearly. We received El Nuevo Herald here at my house, and my mom, who's always been very active politically, that's probably where I get it, my political activism from, brought me an insert in El Nuevo Herald, that it was an 8-page insert filled with anti-Semitic slurs, racist slurs. There was an entire page dedicated on how voting by mail was not safe. I mean, it was really propaganda. It was filled with misinformation, really meant to mislead our Hispanic communities. So I immediately alerted my team. And then it turned out that this insert, without really saying that it was a paid insert, so it seemed to be part of the newspaper. So if you were just reading the newspaper, or someone who's older, who receives a No Herald all the time, they may assume that it's part of the news in the newspaper. It wasn't even listed as a paid advertisement. Mm-hmm. So we realized that this had been a contract that had been done in January of the beginning of that year of 2020, and it was inserted once a week, every Friday. So we don't know all the what all the information or disinformation had been included for about 8 months at that time, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things, and then I started getting messages from different people here in Miami that were hearing false attacks against me, against now President Biden. At the time he was a candidate, Biden, things that were just completely false and meant to mislead. So misinformation is not anything new, right? I mean, we've seen these tactics being used, but what used to be really on the black web or in the fringe social media outlets, what we're seeing now is that what was really troublesome at the time is that we were starting to see that this misinformation or disinformation was being coordinated in mainstream Spanish media outlets like El Nuevo Herald, radio stations, really well-known radio stations down here in South Florida. So I teamed up with Representative Joaquin Castro. We discussed this to ask the FBI to understand where is this coordination coming from, because it wasn't just political. It was also hurting our communities as we were trying to fight the pandemic with misinformation on COVID vaccines and treatments. So we asked the FBI to investigate. So after that, after the 2020 election, I followed up with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I've been in communication with my former Congress member colleagues and friends. So the House Administration Committee came down to this to have a roundtable to bring light to the issue, to understand how pervasive the problem is, to hear from all the people that have been working on this issue, like Evelyn Perez, who's been really since 2016, 2017, looking into the misinformation. Hearing from Andrea Mercado, who had done a study after the January 6th riot and insurrection at the Capitol. They started tracking all the misinformation that was being heard on Spanish media. And for them, it's a matter of national security, and it should be a matter of national security for all of us, because what we're seeing is that this type of disinformation, it's not only dividing our community and our country, but it really is affecting our public health. It's affecting the way that we communicate with one another. And what we believe, and one of the reasons why I think the FBI needs to continue to investigate, is that this is a well-coordinated effort. That it's
so you're describing a criminal conspiracy, right? That's what it appears. That's what it's turning out to.
Right? We need to investigate without making any allegations. I'm very careful with that because we don't know. We don't have. There are different groups right now nationally looking into it.
So let me pause here and tell you, for the purpose of the audience and for the benefit of the audience, I am not putting words in your mouth. I'm a former public corruption investigator. I ran a public corruption unit. And this is how we would look at these type of, when it's schemes, right? Because it's a scheme that is used to play on the fears of people, prey on the fears of people, such as the call for labeling of people down here in South Florida as socialist, right? If you haven't lived in a socialist community or under dictatorship, you don't know what it's like, right? You don't know what it's like. And I know you have some personal experience from your father who was killed. My condolences. So this is about putting, facts to context, or context to facts. And I ask you, from your involvement in this issue with this topic, which is, I believe, one of your former colleagues during the Congressional Committee hearing of February 7th, Teresa Leger Fernandez, pointed to the fact that South Florida Florida is becoming the capital of misinformation. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you're seeing? What are the plays? What is it that people need to be looking out for?
So part of the reason why we should all be alarmed is that what is happening here locally is much larger than just one district, one area, one county. They are using South Florida and Florida overall as a testing ground to test tactics to mislead voters, to use falsehoods and lies to our community to gain power. And so now they're using these tactics in other areas, specifically targeting Hispanic communities. So that's why Representative Fernandez brought it up, because she's seeing it in New Mexico. Nanette Barragan from California, she's seeing it in California. Some of my colleagues in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Veronica Escobar, Silvia Garcia, they are seeing this being used as a tactic to divide, to mislead in Texas, especially along the border. And what's really worrisome, Robert, is that even though we are now aware of it and it's becoming more and more an issue that people are following, the right-wing extremists are digging in. They continue to propagate really dangerous falsehoods that are really going to threaten not only, like I said, our democratic institutions, but they're threatening our public health. One of the things that right now we all need to be paying attention to is what we're hearing from right-wing conservative media regarding Russia and Ukraine. Russia is the king, the czar of lies and misinformation. We have seen a huge increase of Russian presence trying to mislead voters and the communities in Latin America in Spanish language. So we can't allow him to win this war, Robert. We need to be united as Americans, especially now as we see. Sorry, I don't know. I'm losing my but we need to be united here in this country to fight this war. It's a war of information. And right now, we have people from the other side of the aisle, Republican elected officials, that are repeating Russian talking points. This is unconscionable. This should not be allowed, and we should all call it out for what it is.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Rep. I'm going to call you Rep.
That's
because
fine.
you still my rep.
Robert.
Okay.
Yeah.
The amount of effort that's going into this, can you share with the audience what tools are being employed, what resources are being employed to acquire the assets that then deliver the messages? You just mentioned about the Herald, the article that was in the Nuevo Herald, I believe it was, that ran for a series of a period of time. But what other resources, what other assets are being acquired and utilized in this information warfare?
Well, right now I can tell you that there are different universities that are looking into the misinformation and actually investing and educating. It's like a digital education program, so that we can start educating our students, whether in high school or in college, on how to check their source of information. Right now, there are absolutely no borders as it pertains to social media. You can get information from Germany in an instant. You can get it on a WhatsApp chat group from Ecuador in an instant, and it can spread very, very rapidly. So one of the things that we need to invest resources in is educating this new generation of informed citizens so that they can make their own decisions based on appropriate and accurate information. That's the project that I'm working on, and I'm going to work on this specifically with our Hispanic communities. Our diaspora communities are hardworking people who come here, escaping violence, looking for opportunities, making sure that they can make it with their families. They work very hard. They're trusting, some of the mainstream media that they're hearing. There's no reason for them to believe that they're being lied to. So it's about just educating, providing information and empowerment so that our citizens can be very well informed when they come to the ballot box to make decisions that are going to benefit them and their families.
So let's back up a second, because I love what you're doing. I think it's a great effort, and certainly more of it's needed. Obviously, we need more resources, dollars, right? Hard cash to be able to expand these services or these programs. But on the other side, the people who are, I guess, promoting this effort of misinformation, they're acquiring, am I right? They're acquiring radio stations, they're acquiring media stations, they're paying for advertisement. They're setting up social media channels, and I guess social media has become another vehicle of choice for these people who will, spread the misinformation. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you've discovered, what the committee has discovered, what your colleagues have discovered?
Well, we live in the United States of America, and people are free to acquire radio stations. They're free to have their own social media channels. We have First Amendment issues, and we need to protect freedom of speech. That always has to come first. Now, what we're talking about is adding to the information that is being right now presented, like you're saying. Yes, they're trying to monopolize the information that is being targeted to Hispanic communities and other voters that are vulnerable to this disinformation. What we need to do is add absolutely more accurate information so that so our voters, our citizens, American citizens, whether you're Hispanic or Haitian or Asian American, they have the tools to make the right decisions for themselves and for their families. And so, yes, we need investments as it pertains to forms of communication, whether it's in social media or mainstream media. We need to make sure that Americans realize that this is actually one of our top national security threats. We are talking about our democracy. We are talking about our freedoms. We are talking about ensuring that we don't allow the extreme right wing to use this disinformation to incite violence, Robert. I mean, we know that a lot of the disinformation that was happening in social media incited the riot and the insurrection in January 6th, where Donald Trump really was fueling the lie that he lost the election, that Democrats stole the election, then those lies were repeated here in South Florida in Spanish in our communities. That is something that we need to figure out how to provide oversight. We can't. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Are Democrats trying to destabilize the democracy that we know, the freedoms that we know?
Absolutely not. I mean,
Right.
I can tell you that.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. We need to correct the record, right? We need to have a very strong message that tells the American people that Democrats are actually working for them. Let's not forget. Let's start with the American Rescue Plan. No Republicans voted to provide support for families and small businesses that were hurt by the pandemic. No Republicans voted for that. Let's talk about the infrastructure plan. This is a Democratic plan that when I was in Congress, we were working on. I was pushing to pass an infrastructure bill that would provide good paying jobs for Americans, that would invest in our roads, in our bridges that connect the Keys to the mainland in Miami. No Republicans in Florida voted for this bill. They are the party of no. Democrats are the party that work for families so that they can have opportunities to make it. And we are going to do everything in our power, Robert, to protect our democracy so that we can continue to do that. Because what I worry and what we're seeing here in the state of Florida is that there's a rise of authoritarianism, censorship, a violation of our civil rights and freedoms. And we're seeing it every day in Tallahassee.
So I'll agree with you here that it's a issue of the United States of America, right? Ensuring that we remain a United States, a republic, united republic. The concern that I have is that people are during this partisan divide. They're seeing it either Democrat or Republican, but really it's neither. It's really an issue about us, all of us.
Exactly.
You know, we are affected by labeling, right? You know, not to make this about me, but I served in the military. I know you served in Congress. I served in the police. And while I served in the House, which I'm sure you did the same thing, while you served in the House at the U.S. House of Representatives, it didn't matter to you if, at least it did not matter to me, if a person was a Republican or Democrat or anything in between. We served people accordingly. So I am concerned over this extremism labeling. It's labeling by the extreme side,
Right.
that is further pushing our country, dividing the wedge. And what would you suggest is what the public needs to do in order to make sure that they elect the right people? Because let's face it, we all say we're not into politics, but at the end of the day, the politics are what guide and dictate our hardships and,
I think
goodness in our lives.
Yeah, I think that what's happened is that the past few years, the past administration was very good at eroding the trust in our institutions. And so we are seeing a very low level of trust in our democracy and government and our institutions, the CDC. And the only way to start regaining that trust, Robert, and to start bringing some unity and reach common ground is, I truly believe it's by being present, by having personal conversations with our communities. It can't just be ads on social media. It can't just be, what you and I are doing is wonderful, but I would love to do this with you, with 500 people in a town hall with our community, so that they can ask questions, so that they can get to know who we are. It's all about building trust. Every relationship is built on trust. And like you said, it's absolutely not political. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was serving for Florida's 26th district, I was visiting all the different areas in the Keys, and I went to Key West, one of the fishing areas there, and there was a man wearing Make America Great hat. And I introduced myself, and he said, "I don't think you want to meet me." And I said, "Absolutely, I want to meet you. You're my constituent." "Yeah, but I'm not going to vote for you." And I said, "It doesn't matter if you don't want to vote for me. I'm here to serve you. And I'm here to hear, what are your concerns? How can I help?" And at the end of the day, Robert, that's public service.
Yeah.
It was for me when I was in Congress, and like for you when you were serving. And I remember very well, you served with such grace, dignity, and commitment to the community. It's about the issues that are affecting us. Are people able to access public transportation? Are they going to be able to pay their bills? Are they going to be able to pay for gas? Inflation is an issue right now. So let's talk about that. What do we need to do to control the rise of inflation and make sure people are getting paid what they deserve to be paid? A lot of these cruel policies that are coming out of Tallahassee are not only cruel, but they're also meant to distract. We have issues of affordable housing down here. We have issues of really high level of property and home insurance taxes. Yeah, we may not have state taxes, Robert, but you and I know, I mean, I'm a homeowner. The property taxes go up every year. Home insurance taxes go up every year, and they're very high, higher than many other states. And so those are the issues that we need to tackle. And those are the conversations that must be had in the presence of our community, not away from them.
God, I look forward to continuing this conversation because I have to tell you that as a constituent, as a person who's been working since they were a kid, as a head of household, things are not economically any easier today than they were 4 years ago. But we don't hear from our elected officials and our leaders, right? I think COVID was a great unmasking of the sorry cast of elected officials we have across the board, right? We need better elected officials. And I will tell you this, that we're not hearing from them. We're not hearing from them solutions. We keep hearing the bashing. And for any elected official that wants to continue to push the rhetoric, unfounded rhetoric, without a vision or without a plan to improve our quality of lives of the people here that they serve, they're not serving the community. Congresswoman, I can't thank you enough. I look forward to having you again. And I know you made a recent decision, announcement, but I hope you'll continue to seek to serve our community.
I'm right here, Robert. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here with all of you. You're doing a lot for the community as well. We need to continue to just bring decency, respect, and unity down here in South Florida. I truly believe that there are more people that want that than not, and we just have to reach out and make sure that we're united, no matter what happens in the future. So thank you so much for having me, and yes, I'll come back on anytime.
Look forward to having that town hall, if you will.
Yeah.
On that note, look, this show's about you guys, those that are viewing this and those that aren't. And we ask you to drop us a line, let us know what your thoughts are, but more importantly, tell us what you want us to speak about. We have our elected officials, we have our former elected officials, we have community stakeholders, we have newsmakers that are joining us. Let them know what's going on in your life, and let's work together to cut through this crap of misinformation. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next time. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Robert.
What would you do?